All right, hey everybody, welcome back. If you notice, I'm in the same shirt. It's, I think, the third video I'm recording today. It's been a busy week, so I'm making sure I get all of them as soon as I can. I hope you guys have been enjoying our dive into Greek mythology so far. Today, this video is connected to Lesson 3, which is going to be connected to parts of a new book that we're starting. We won't be reading the whole thing, but we're reading parts from, called Gifts from the Gods. And if you should have already watched the video on me reading it or read it to yourself. And this book is called Ancient Words and Wisdom from Greek and Roman Mythology, meaning that it goes through a bunch of words that we use in the English language and how we got those words from both Greek and Roman mythology, which came after and from Greek mythology. And it gives not just the words and where they came from, but also tells a lot of stories behind them. And these stories are stories from Greek mythology, connected to gods, to heroes, to a whole bunch of different ideas. And so it's a really interesting book. I find what's called etymology, which is the study of words, to be really fascinating. And so I think it's interesting that when we read these stories, we can tell what words that we use today and that we use in our language, where they came from and how they become part of our language, because it still happens today. We use words, we make up words all the time, and then those words become part of our language as well. So let's, I think an example right now is I saw an interview between some people online. Someone asked how their nails were looking, and the other person, as Cardi B, said, "You know, your nails are looking a little quarantine," which before this, that's not what quarantine meant. Quarantine just meant being locked in place. But describing someone's nails as looking quarantine, meaning that they look like haggard or not so good, this is directly connected to what we're talking about today. So let's dive in. Again, this is Lesson 3. It's assuming that you've already read pages 39 through 43 of Gifts from the Gods and 49 through 52 of it. The video I read from 39 all the way up straight to 52. And so I'll be using all of that text today. If you haven't read it yet, go back and make sure you read it and watch the video. And our objective today is we are going to define words related to characters from mythology by using the stories and events as context clues. And so the big thing we're doing today is we're going to be using our context clues to figure out the meaning of words. And I'll go a little bit more into detail about what context clues are when we do the lesson. But this is incredibly important because this is how we learn new words. Sometimes we learn new words like when I go through the vocabulary with you, but that's not always the best way to learn new words. A lot of times the best way to learn new words is to actually figure out the meanings of words themselves on your own, and by using stuff that you already know, so that you can connect those ideas together. So that's what we're going to be working on today. And the more words you know, the more words you know. And what I mean by that is if you learn more words, then learning more words on top of that is a lot easier, because you can use the way bigger number of words that you already know to help learn new words. And so all through the lesson, we're going to be learning the meaning of a couple different words, and then our exit ticket will be figuring out what this word hypnotize means, and then explaining how we use clues inside and outside of the word to support that definition, and then explain how the meaning connects to the Greek god Hypnos, which you should have already read the story about. You may already have an answer to this question. That's great. We still want to make sure we get through and get all the practice. So let's dive into our vocabulary. I'm going to get rid of some words because these were words in a different story that I decided that we're going to do later, not with this one. So that might mess up the worksheet a little bit, but we can make it work, because we're creative, we're gritty. Sweet. And so a lot less vocabulary. Here we go. The first word, artificial, means not real, usually made of metal. Not always does it mean made of metal, but it almost always means not real. If someone has an artificial limb, like an arm or a leg, it means that that's not their real arm or leg. It's something that was made by man. Okay. Number 2, the word is roused, means woke from sleep. You were roused this morning likely by either your alarm clock or your parents woke you up so that you were no longer sleeping. This word reluctant means not willing or enthusiastic. Anytime that you're asked to do a job that you do not want to do, you are doing it with reluctance, or you're doing it by being reluctant. I guess I'll do the dishes because I want to eat, but if you don't really want to do it, that means you're reluctant to do it. Number 4, the word is wrath, which means fierce anger. That's exactly what it means. Rah, very angry, wrath. Number 5, the word is attend, which means to serve. And so an example of this is when you go to a restaurant, the waiter or waitress is attending you. They are attending, which means they are serving you. Number 6, the word is via, which means by means of. And so when you go home from, I know this has been a while, but when you go home from school, you might go via your parents' car or via walking. It's just the way that you do something. Okay. Number 7 is billowing, which just means swelling. When something is blowing in the wind, it is billowing. So if you have sheets out and they're blowing in the wind, or you blow a kite, that is swelling up. And number 8, the word is vessel. Simply means a hollow container for liquids. A water bottle can be a vessel. A beaker that you use in science class that holds water, that's a vessel as well. Great. So to get our activation, somehow got moved up here, so let's move it back down here. But to get our brains moving in the right direction, we're going to read more about gods and goddesses today, and we've read a lot about different gods and goddesses already. Sorry, I'm playing with this, it's really bothering me. And I'm just curious, which one is your favorite so far? So take a moment, answer this on your own, and then when you come back, we'll discuss briefly. Great, now that you're back, again, any of the gods that you've read about can be your favorite. Everyone has different reasons. Mine, in particular, right now, and it changes as I learn more and less about Greek mythology, is Artemis. I think in the Gods and Goddesses of Olympus, it uses a great description. She was a warrior, or who doesn't... No, that wasn't Artemis. I'm sorry. That is... I'm forgetting her name right now. It is another A. It's not Aphrodite. It's... Oh my gosh. Where'd it go? Athena. There we go. Athena. Says that she's a warrior who hates war. And I think that's awesome. I think it's someone who is brave and strong, but knows that fighting is not always the best answer. And so Athena really is high in my ranks right now, but it changes. Cool. So again, our goal today is we're going to be using our context clues to figure out the meaning of words. So some of you might already be thinking, figure out something. Oh, I'm going to be making an inference. And so, yeah, this is all about inferencing. With context clues, there's just particular ways that we can use the details from a text to make smart guesses about what words mean. And so I'm going to give you a quick demonstration on that. So again, our goal, inferring the meaning of words by using our context clues. Some words that you're going to need to know. Context clues. They are details inside and outside of a word that can help infer the meaning. And so when we go through, we'll find that sometimes words give us clues inside themselves, or words outside themselves to help us figure out what they mean. We know infer means to make a smart guess, and those are the two big ones we need to know. All right, context clues. There are really 3 ways to help you figure out what a word means, and we'll go through all 3 of them. One way is to look inside the word. If there's a word that we don't know, we can sometimes break it down into smaller parts that we do know, and then use those parts to figure out what the word means. For example, in this sentence, when its owners raised their voice, the dog ran fearfully under the table. Now, if you don't know what this word here, fearfully, means, here's some clues. You see the word fear, and you see the word full in the word. So together, the word fearfully probably means full of fear. We're going to talk about outside the word in a second, but that makes sense. The owners raised its voice. The dog was probably afraid, so it ran under the table. So fearfully probably just means full of fear. Yeah, that's how you use clues inside the word to help you figure out what it means. Now we can look outside or around the word. And I say around because these are words that are nearby. So for example, the brave fireman was hacking at the door with an axe, trying to break it down. Okay. If you're not sure what this word hacking means, it probably means hitting or striking, because you know, your schema, a fireman who's trying to break down a door, just rescue somebody, is probably going to be hitting it with an axe, right? It says at the door with an axe. Hacking, probably hitting or striking with the axe. Okay? That's what a fireman would do. So hacking probably means hitting or striking. So a lot of people will say these are the two, inside and outside the word. And that's for two ways to figure out what a word means. I'm going to add one on top of it, which is kind of an extension of around the word. And that's using the whole story or the whole article or the whole piece of text that you're reading. Sometimes the meaning of a word is found around it, but not in just a couple sentences. You actually have to use the whole page or whole paragraph or even the whole story to figure out what that word means. So here's an example of that. It says, the linebacker made a truly Herculean effort to tackle the runner before he got into the end zone. And now this word here is the word Herculean. Now, you might not know what it means, but from this part of the story, okay, you can see that the linebacker was tackling the runner to get into the end zone before he got there. And now this word Herculean, you kind of look inside it, you see the word Hercules, and we haven't studied it in depth in Greek mythology, but almost everyone knows who Hercules is. And the story of Hercules, he's very, very strong, right? And so the whole story is telling us that Hercules is strong, so we can probably guess that Hercules means Herculean effort is probably a very strong, brave effort. Because Herculean probably means brave or strong, because Hercules is very, very strong and brave. Cool. And so we would use the whole story of Hercules to help figure this word out. And so those are the three ways that you can really use your context clues to help figure out what the word means. Inside the word, around the word, and then the whole story, either of a story outside of the text or the whole text that's in. And that's really what we're going to be focusing on today. Awesome. So, back to, okay, just double checking I'm on the right screen, because if I wasn't the whole time, I'd be very embarrassed. All right. Just three brief thinking questions today. They're directly connected to the text that you read. And two of them are directly connected to us figuring out the word. One is just going to help us with our exit ticket. So that's actually the first one. Why did the author, you know what, I'm gonna swim this around. I'm going to put this third, because this is just directly here to help us with our exit ticket. The other two are giving us good practice on using our context clues. This helps us with our exit ticket. So we'll do it last right before the exit ticket. And I'll make sure I change that around in your papers too. Okay, so what does the word museum mean on page 52? And how does it relate to the story of the Muses? And so first, go to page 52, see if you can make your smart guess about what the word means. And then how does it relate to the story of the Muses? Again, that's why it's so important that you've read this. If you haven't read the story of the Muses, it's going to be a little bit more challenging. So if you haven't, like I said at the beginning, make sure you go back and read it. Pause the video now, and we'll see you back in a moment. Awesome. Now that you're back, we're going to go into camera mode so that I can show you what I found, both around the word museum, but also from the story of the Muses. That's Pandora. And I know some of these pages aren't marked with their numbers, so it can be a little bit more challenging. Camera mode. Engage. I gotta get some sound effects for this stuff. Okay, so right here on page 52, the text says, today, and it's blurry, I'm sorry, I'm trying to make it not blurry, but it says, today, museums house collections of art, science, and history, work that the Muses inspired and work that inspires us today. And so that tells me that this word museum, it houses these things. And so a museum must be a place for art, for science, or for history. Yeah, so that's the smart guess I made, that museums are a place for art, for science, or for history. Now, how does that connect to the Muses? Well, when we read about the Muses, we learned that they were the 9 daughters of Zeus. They loved stories. And then here, then we learned that they would put on performances. But then on this page, I think 51, it says whether they performed comedy or tragedy, poetry or dance, the Muses always included song. When their best friend Apollo, god of light and music, accompanied them on the lyre, the Muses' voices rang especially sweet and true. Their song soared through the halls of Mount Olympus, down the mountainside and all the way to earth, where poets suddenly found the word they were searching for. Artists painted with bolder strokes, and the musicians felt the stirring of new melodies. And so this shows that humans were able to make art and create art and music from the muses' inspiration. And so the word museum is connected to the muses because the museum holds art and history and things that were inspired by the muses. And again, the story of the muses is their singing from Olympus inspired humans to create great art. So we're going to boop back. Right. So the word, let's separate it. The word museum means a place that houses art, science, or history. I think it said it houses collections of. This relates to the story of the muses because the muses were daughters of Zeus who loved to perform. When they sang, their music would come down from Mount Olympus and inspire artists, musicians, and writers to create great art. This art would then be put into museums. Look at that. So, where a museum is a place that holds a collection of art, science, or history, connects to the muses because the muses are who inspired people to make art. Thus, the connection. Awesome. I think that's really fascinating. And also the word music and musician comes from the word muse as well. Really interesting. All right, second question, new word. What does the word janitor mean on page 46? What clues did you use, and how does it relate to the story of Janus? So head back to page 46, find the meaning of the word janitor, and then review the story of the god Janus and how it connects to janitor. Great, now that you've done it, come back to me. We're back in camera mode. We're going to be on page 36. Where is it? Sorry, not 36, 46. 46. Janitor. All right. So, this one, the clue is right there. It's around the word, but it's right there around the word. It says the word janitor, then it says one who attends to the maintenance or cleaning of a building. So it's someone who attends to the maintenance or cleaning of a building. Also down here on page, I believe 48, it says, there you go, the word janitor, which is also what we call people who look after buildings, especially the hallways and doorways. And so that just gives us very clearly what the word janitor means. Okay? Are people who look after buildings, especially the hallways and the doorways. Now, how does that connect to the story of Janus? Well, if we look over here, this is actually outside of Greek mythology. This is in Roman mythology. It says the Romans revered Janus, which means they thought he was very important, for his strength and loyalty. Once, when Janus witnessed an army trying to kidnap a group of innocent women, he became so enraged that he made a volcanic hot spring erupt, burying the attackers and saving the women. I'm not sure why it's being so blurry, so I guess. In gratitude for this and for the many ways he looked after them, the Romans carved Janus's likeness on the top of nearly every city gate, allowing him to watch over the citizens inside and to keep a sharp lookout for approaching enemies. And so this shows that a janitor is someone who looks over hallways and doorways, just like the Romans carved Janus to look over their buildings and their hallways and look over themselves. And so that word, the god Janus, Jan, janitor, the words come from each other. All right, so back to typing mode. Right. So the word, more space. The word janitor means someone who looks after a building, hallways, and doorways. It asks, what clues did you use? The clues are right there. I know this because in the texts it says, and then we're going to say the exact words, which again are on page 48. Too far. Nope, not far enough. There we go. The word janitor, which is what we call people who look after buildings, especially the hallways and doorways. Yeah. And then how does it relate to the story of Janus? This relates to the story of Janus because Janus once rescued a group of, typing, not good, of innocent women from being captured by an army. In gratitude, Romans would carve his face on doorways and gates, so he was always looking over the people. Great. Marvelous. So next time you see Mr. Tyree in school, give him a shout and say, hey, your job is named after a god. All right. Now, this last one is not exactly finding the meaning of the word, but it's going to help you find the meaning of the word in your exit ticket. So it says, why did the author include the image on page 40? So turn to page 40, and then pause the video for a moment, do your best to try to answer the question, and then we'll meet up together. Great. Now that you're back, we'll look at the image, the picture on page 40, and we'll talk about why the author included it, and then we'll talk about our exit ticket because it's connected. So here, this is the picture on page 40. The picture, as you read, is showing the goddess Nyx, who is the goddess of the night, and her son, Hypnos, who is pouring sleep out of his jar to other people. And so the picture shows us really clearly that this goddess Nyx is what makes up the night. You've got the stars in her dark hair, and then you've got her son Hypnos who's pouring the sleep out. And so I think the author included this picture to help us visualize, help us see what the Greeks thought of when they were talking or when they were telling stories about Nyx and Hypnos. So I think, again, this is just an inference, but I think the author included the picture so we could understand what the Greeks thought of when they told stories about Nyx and her son Hypnos. It shows Nyx with dark hair and stars in the night sky because she was the goddess of night. It shows Hypnos pouring sleep over everyone because that's Man, I keep doing this because Greeks believed that hypnosis sleep, I don't even know what to call it, sleep stuff, is what made them go to bed at nighttime. Awesome. So, that gives us a lot of information about not just Hypnos and Nyx, but that picture really helps us visualize exactly what the Greeks pictured in their mind when they were telling stories about the two, the goddess and the god. And now, again, the reason why we did that is we wanted to, that's going to help us out with our exit ticket. We're asked, what does the word hypnotize mean in Gifts from the Gods? So we're going to use clues from inside and outside the word to help your definition, and then explain how the meaning connects to the Greek nod, hypnos. And so when you do this, make sure that your answer tells what the word or phrase in the text means. Find clues from characters in the myths, and also give clues from inside and outside the word to help support the definition. So, take some time right now, go ahead and answer this question as best you can, making sure that it matches up the criteria for success, and then when you come back, we'll go over a good response. All right, now that you're back, it's going to be very, very similar to what we did in the past. You should turn right back to the story of Hypnos. It's again on page 39. And switch back to camera mode for just a moment. Camera mode. Right on the page it says hypnotize, right there, to put into the artificial sleep-like condition. And then also later on it says when somebody is put into an artificial sleep or trance, as Zeus was, we call it being hypnotized. Right, so that gives us a very, very clear clues about what it means to be hypnotized, is being put into an artificial sleep or trance. Okay, and there's the clue that we'll state from the text that gives us that answer. But now the next part is, what does it have to do with the story of Hypnos? Is that, well, we know Hypnos was the god of sleep, but hypnotize doesn't mean sleep, it means to be put to sleep artificially. And we look in Hypnos here, though, through the story I read, Zeus, who's down here, and Hera were having a disagreement, and Hera was going to give Hypnos a particular wife, Thalia, if he was able to put Zeus to sleep long enough for Hera to help her Greeks win the war against the Trojans. And so here's what Hypnos did. He climbed the highest tree, and upon reaching the top, he hid among the branches. When he was certain that Zeus did not suspect his presence, he sprinkled sleep unto the mighty god. At once Zeus's eyes closed, and he was in a deep slumber. And so that shows that not only does Hypnos have to do with sleep, but hypnotizing someone is putting them to sleep even when it's not night out, or even when it's not sleep time, just like Hypnos did to Zeus when Hera asked him to. That's how it is connected. So, the word hypnotize means to put someone in an artificial sleep-like state. I know this because in the text it says, again, artificial, spell it correctly, misspell notes, there we go. And I want to get the exact words from the text, which are back on the page that I just showed you and we underlined. And there's so many, as I'm turning through, there's so many good stories in this book. Is that it? That's gender. It's muse. Here we go. When somebody is put into an artificial sleep or trance, as Zeus was, we call it being hypnotized. And some of you might be thinking, like, Ms. Von Holtz, we don't even need to make a guess about what this word means. It's right there in the text. It's very obvious. Yeah, it's true. It's super obvious. Sometimes people mix it though, just because when they try to guess what a word means, they don't use the text. They use just what they already know. And so this should show you that if you go back and use the text, sometimes it's going to be really easy. Okay. So this connects to the Greek god Hypnos, because Hypnos sprinkled sleep on Zeus's eyes to make him fall asleep. He did this because Hera promised he could marry Thalia if he distracted Zeus from helping the Trojans in the Trojan War. And then, so to distract Zeus, he put him to sleep, even though it wasn't nighttime. Bam. Did we tell what the word or phrase means? It means to put someone in an artificial sleep by state. Very good. Do we find clues from characters and myths? Yes, this whole thing is an explanation of the characters from myths. Did we get clues from outside and inside the word to support the definition? We sure did. Right here is the clue outside the word. And the word hypno inside of it is the clue that gave us inside the word. So if you answered like this, and there was lots of other ways to answer too, but as long as you made sure that you supported your thinking with evidence from the text and the story, you did well. Cool. I hope you guys enjoyed that story about Hypnos and the stories of janitors and the muses and where those words came from. We are not going to be reading the entirety of the Gifts from the Gods book. We'll be coming back to it at least one more time, maybe two more times. But if you have access to it, I highly suggest reading through the whole thing. Every story is fascinating. Every word is interesting. And that's a great way to build your vocabulary too, as we're diving through this. So we'll catch up next time when we're actually reading not about gods, but about a hero from Greek mythology called Theseus. And that'll actually be our Zoom meeting that we do a lesson on Theseus and the Minotaur together. So I'm looking forward to seeing your work. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you when we see you.